So, Joe, we are going to stay in Australia, where it is the morning of tomorrow. So there
Yes.
are us, and we are going to bring John Benson, who is a dear friend of us as well. And I had the privilege of meeting John many years ago when I traveled to Australia, and he comes to the US very often. And like Speedflow that was on just earlier on, work closely with 3P Connects here in California and have all their great products here in the US. And I think we have Mr. Davies Craig himself as well with us. And
hello.
Welcome.
hello. And I visited their facility probably 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, with and at that time was run by Ben Bartlett. So I've been to your place, Richard, and you might not remember it, but it was I had a tour, and I think it was with John Kilroy as well. So thank you very much for being with us.
Enough of
Time to
that.
visit again.
Joe.
Time to visit again. Maybe
Yes.
permitting.
We will. So Joe, on to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Francisque and Judy. And thank you everybody out there on EPARTRADE. We're bringing it down the stretch with these two gentlemen from down under, John and Richard, Davies Craig. And Richard, it is my understanding that your brother got it all rolling along with Bill Craig. I want to talk a little bit about that, but just first of all, thank you for joining us and doing doing a little research about your company. Just amazing how you guys have been ahead of the curve in cooling and really set an industry standard in the cooling industry, which is so vital if you're going to make power. We've talked about it over the past couple of days. You got to keep these things cool, and you with the thermatic fans and the electric water pump, just amazing stuff. Let's talk about how it got started, though, like the catalyst early on to bring these two men together to create something new and better.
Yes, well, my brother Daryl and Bill Craig, who's a airline pilot at the time, were having a chat in a pub actually, and they were talking about how inefficient the belt-driven fan is and how it's running all the time, and when the engine's going fast, it's going needlessly fast and wasting power. And so they decided to develop an electric fan to replace the belt-driven mechanical fan, and they developed a thermal switch and started selling kits to allow people to convert from belt-driven fan to electric fan. And at that time, if you had air conditioning fitted to your car post-sale, the air conditioning people would put on this huge, much bigger fan to accommodate the air conditioning. And so when that fan came off, there was a dramatic improvement in performance.
Ah, interesting. And this is happening 50 years ago, this initiative.
50 years ago, yes.
And I love the fact that it happened in a pub. That makes it so much better.
Right. Makes it more authentic, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's where all the best stuff happens. And Richard, you're the managing director, but John, sales and marketing manager. And so your job is to tell the story.
Yeah. Yep. Look, yeah, thank you, Joe, and thanks for having us on board. Yeah, look, it's been a remarkable journey, and certainly being involved with Davies Craig over the last 13 or 14 years has certainly been an eye-opener for me. And being involved with this innovative product and being able to take it, especially to the United States, which is so important for us. And listening to Sean and Travis earlier, we're fortunate we're teamed up with 3P Connect, and we're really pushing along with our marketing, and obviously we'll be at PRI next week, and I'm flying over there on Monday.
Oh, excellent. Glad to see you back. And I know I have some friends down there, and I'm sure you guys are, really excited to be going somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been homebound. In fact, we had a ring of steel around Melbourne because you weren't allowed to leave. You weren't allowed outside a 5-kilometre radius. So thankfully that's all behind us. And heaven forbid, looking forward to heading to the States without any drama, and looking forward to being at Indy next week.
Excited to host you.
And we've got some wonderful things to show people.
And so as much as I want to talk about the history of the company, because you guys built something that has withstood the test of time, and just doing some interesting research, like, Siemens awarding the highest supplier rating, get this, everybody, 350,000 units on time, zero rejects. So you're doing something right in manufacturing. Like, that is insane to be able to produce 350,000 anything and make them have it be perfect and not rejected. But I also want to spend time on the current and the future. And so, John, why don't you address a little bit of that? Let's look backwards at some of the products that got you to where you are, and then what you're doing now.
Okay, well, I guess 20 odd years ago, when, as Richard pointed out, that obviously with the development of the thermoregulator fan was revolutionary and innovative. And following on from that, of course, there was development of the electric water pump. And that was done in conjunction with the CSIRO down here, which is the Commonwealth Laboratories. The testing that was done to ensure that the right flow was available electrically to at the Australian engines at that time, which were the 3.9 and 4.1 litre engines in General Motors cars and Ford cars. And that was developed, that's how we developed the 80 litres or 20 gallons a minute, which in your language was developed. And that's been an absolute, that was a revolutionary saver. And as Richard pointed out, another factor in being able to save horsepower or increase horsepower, because as we all know, an electric water pump, or beg your pardon, a mechanical water pump will actually chew up about 7 to 10 horsepower. And when you can put that into the back wheels rather than having it being used to drive the mechanical pump, is obviously very beneficial, especially to the racers.
Absolutely. Well, and isn't that what it's all about? And Richard, that discovery, that had to be a eureka moment to realize, like, hey, isn't that the goal of engineering, to accomplish two things at once?
Exactly.
Are we cooling this thing better, but we're freeing up horsepower?
Yep. Well, we were well into the electric fan market, and we thought, well, what else can go electric? And we opened the bonnet, or the hood, as you would say, and look at the engine, and the mechanical water pump was staring at us. And I thought, well, why can't we make an electric water pump? And people said to me, well, if that was going to work, it would have been done by now. Anyway, we got a marine pump, and we disabled the mechanical pump, put this marine pump in, and went for a drive down the road. Next thing, the engine was boiling. And I was driving back thinking, well, this is why this hasn't been done before. Where we got back and had a look, and there's a loose connection. The pump wasn't working at all. Anyway, we got the connection right, went for another ride down the road, and the temperature gauge wouldn't get off the cold peg. The electric water pump was going full speed, full system voltage, and couldn't get the temperature gauge off the peg. So we knew we were onto something.
Wow, that is tremendous. And to think of how that has evolved, it's almost mandatory in most motorsports. It's a mandatory piece. It's the future.
Pretty much, isn't it? And that just goes to show that not everything has been invented.
Not yet, but
Not yet.
Well, the one thing that developed from that, as Richard was probably about to allude to, is the patented digital controller that we now supply as what we call a combo kit with the electric water pump. And that's been revolutionary, because that'll control the flow of the coolant commensurate with the engine temperature. And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to demonstrating to those that attend PRI next week. We've got what we call it a fish tank. It's a V8 tank that has the EWP electric water pump connected to the side of it with a digital controller that'll control the flow, and you can actually change with a potentiometer, just change the flow to demonstrate the heat or non-heat and the coolant flow in that particular tank. And it's quite a good demonstration. We'll have that next week. But any number of electric water pumps are being sold around the world, and certainly now in the US, to control the coolant flow of steaming hot engines.
Excellent. Now, I do want to remind everybody out there, EPARTRADE.com, everybody watching from around the world, if you do have questions, put them in the chat section. John and Richard will be happy to answer them. And I doubt you're going to stump these guys when it comes to cooling systems. As a world leader, you can put your question up there. And I would imagine you guys are doing cooling system parts for just about everything that races on wheels. Talk a little bit about some of the people you're involved with.
Well, I guess we're new boys on the block when it comes to the American market, although we've been attempting to be involved with the American market for probably the best part of a decade. But most of our product is sold through companies like Summit Racing and Jegs. And there are other distributors around the US that also market our products to the general public as well. But, and like all good companies, we've got a very fast-flowing, pardon the pun, website, which has all the information that anyone can log on to, www.daviescraig.com, and there's a whole lot of information there, facts and figures, YouTube videos, and one of the things that is pretty important, Joe, is people's understanding and educating people's understanding of the electric water pump. People see the electric water pump and see it. Oh, there's $500 worth of electric water pump and digital controller. Well, one of the things we try and do in only Australia, but around the world, is if you've got a $500 product, make sure you've got a $500 story. And we know we've got a $500 story. In fact, we've got a $1,000 story. We discount it a bit. But on a serious note, it is a very highly valued piece of equipment that we value very highly. We treasure it a lot, and as I say, it's absolutely going gangbusters for us, and hopefully that market is continuing to grow as we grow in the United States.
Well, just a quick search prior to us getting on the air here. I saw your products are available at most of our high performance warehouses. You mentioned a couple, which is great. And I can think, we'll talk about the water pump because it is a little different than some of the ones that I see. It looks like a more of a kind of, I would call it an inline unit. I don't know how I would say that, but the fans are something that everybody needs. I know that some of yours are coming standard on some manufactured cars, but anybody who wants to get involved in racing initially, that's one of the first things they're going to buy. Like I come from a drag racing background. One of the first things you need to be able to do is cool your car down. So whether it be a pusher unit or an impeller style unit, yours is reversible, right? You can do either.
Yes, exactly. They are reversible. And of course, the most important factor with the thermatic electric fans is the power, CFM, cubic feet per minute. What is not publicised by a lot of the fan manufacturers, especially some of the Southeast Asian ones, they don't tell you exactly how much CFM they produce. They look exactly the same, but they're not. They're definitely not the same. And 9 times out of 10, they're made of plastic. And of course, as you all know, when plastic gets hot, it flattens out. So end up with a couple of flat blades on the side of your radiator. Is not a lot of fun. So these are made of a nylon glass material, a very strong material, good for 130 degrees C. And I guess if your engine's got to that temperature, then you're in a bit of trouble.
Yes, I can't do the calculation just yet, but I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot. I know those numbers.
Well, so I should have said it was 266 C.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. Sorry, I should talk in Fahrenheit. I'm trying to get the languages right.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Now let's talk about, for people that are interested out there. I like to do this at the beginning of each seminar. You've already given the website, which is great, but your points of contact or people who are interested, what's the best way for them to follow up if they want to purchase one of your units?
Oh, okay. Good question. They can go onto the website. We have a list of distributors, in fact, worldwide distributors, a list of worldwide distributors on the website, and certainly all the United States distributors are listed on www.daviescraig.com.
Excellent, excellent. And the questions are starting to come in, gentlemen. And so here's the first one. Electric water pumps work well in drag racing, but would you recommend it in an off-road application where we deal with dust, bumps, not necessarily optimal conditions? I think a couple of guys from Australia might have the answer.
Okay. Well, certainly we sell a lot of electric water pumps into Speedway, where the radiators are in the back, in the trunk, as you call it, and from away from the dust and the dirt and so on. And they work extremely well with high-powered engines with the radiators in the rear. So there's no doubt about them being used on off-road. Again, in a similar situation, we have an event down here called the Fink Desert Rally, which is a bit like the Baja Rally that you have in America. It's pretty severe, very, very severe. And we've got a number of competitors that use our products. And in fact, a lot of them say they wouldn't finish the event without it.
Excellent, excellent. And thank you for your question, Todd. I appreciate it. If we've got an additional question, posted in the chat section. So let's talk about, temperature control in relationship to fuel consumption and making optimal horsepower. You've already said a couple of things that have triggered me, and just in terms of your controller and the switches. Most of the time, I think most people just try to keep their engine within a range, cool.
Correct.
It sounds like you can dial in a more specific operating temperature with your product.
I might answer this one, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our customers can use the digital controller to set a temperature which gives them maximum fuel consumption, or minimum fuel consumption, I should say, or maximum horsepower to the wheels, and they're not generally the same temperature. So the digital controller works by sensing the engine temperature. Then you set on the controller the temperature you want your engine to be at. The controller then sends a voltage to the electric water pump motor, changing the speed of the pump, looking for the target temperature. And when it gets there, it locks on. So if you start going up a hill or working the engine a bit harder, engine getting hotter, pump goes faster. Come down the other side of the hill, engine getting cooler, pump goes slower. But it's a very aggressive lock on, and the temperature varies very little once you've got the controller going.
Wow, that is a tremendous innovation, and I can imagine that there are crew chiefs and racers listening to this right now, thinking about controlling temperature, especially in drag racing. Controlling temperature is directly related to performance.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
And you can burn someone down on the starting line now if you need.
That's right.
Well, you got to get to the starting line first, and more importantly, the comment that you made earlier, Joe, is after you've finished the run, that you've got an electric water pump and a controller that will control the speed of the coolant, move the coolant through the engine when the engine's actually turned off, which is absolutely important.
Yes. Yeah, no, it is pretty amazing. So let's talk about the technology involved in the switches. It seems that you guys are an industry leader and you're offering this package together. Is there a standard model? Is there a base? Is there an upgraded version? And what applies to what? Like, let's talk about the target audience out there.
Okay, good question. Yes, there is. We have 5 models. I've got to talk in gallons now. 20 litre, a 30 litre, and 20 gallon, 30 gallon, and 40 gallon electric water pumps. They're all available with the digital controller. And again, we have a chart on our website, www.daviescraig.com, which shows exactly which particular pump would suit which particular cubic capacity engine.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Here's another question from Tim. What about a 750 horsepower street strip pump gas engine? Will this system work in this scenario?
Short answer, yes. In some instances, it could be possible to put 2 electric water pumps or 2 EWP 150s, that's a 40 gallon per minute pump, in a series. And it'll work.
Interesting. Is it possible to have too much flow? I don't know that there would. Like, once you lock on a temperature, it doesn't matter what you're getting. The flow is related to the temperature.
This is a very common question. And a lot of people who are quite educated and qualified engineers think that you can have too much flow. And that results, that idea comes from the fact that if a mechanical water pump is pumping at a high speed, the pump can cavitate. So the coolant turns to froth and bubble inside the pump, and the actual physical flow of liquid coolant goes down. Then the engine starts to overheat. And so it's looking as if the pump's going very fast, and it should be pumping a lot of coolant and cooling the engine well. But in fact, it's cavitating, froth and bubble, engine temperature is going up. So people have this idea that, oh, it's pumping too fast and the coolant isn't spending enough time in the radiator to lose its heat. We've shown on test rigs that you cannot pump faster and lose less coolant. That is, pump faster genuine liquid coolant and lose less heat. So what happens is, as you increase the speed of the pump, the temperature asymptotes. So it sort of levels off, and pumping faster doesn't give you much more cooling because you're removing all the heat that the engine is producing. If that follows.
Yeah. No, it does. It does.
So you can't pump faster and lose less coolant.
Okay. No, interesting.
Our pumps are designed to run at the optimum speed for the electric motor and the optimum speed for the mechanical pump, electric water pump itself. So we never cavitate. We never cavitate.
Excellent.
Yep.
What happens, because we mentioned this being an inline kind of unit, what happens, what goes in place of your water pump previously? Like, you know, that big block Chevrolet was designed for the water pump on the front, and many of the electrical units that we see out there like kind of bolt in that spot. What goes there if you use something like you guys are presenting?
You take that, John?
Yes, okay. Yeah, we have a number of adapter plates for those particular engines. We've got, and we'll be showing the LS adapter plate at PRI next week. Ideally, you've got a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of transplanted engines that are put into various cars, and 9 times out of 10, the engine bay is slightly smaller than the engine that they're about to put in. Usually, we all know biggest is best. So when the water pump is going to take up a considerable amount of space on the front of the block, between the block and the radiator. So to be able to get rid of that particular mechanical water pump and fit the Davies Craig electric water pump to the bottom radiator hose, which is well away from the block, you can have the radiator very close to the block without any impediment whatsoever. I mean, obviously, you've got to remember that most of the engines are still got to put an electric fan on, so you certainly need at least 6 inches of gap between the back of the radiator and the front of the block to ensure that you can put your electric fan on. So you've got your electric fan and your electric water pump working in situ to keep that engine cool.
Excellent. And I would imagine you recommend, I don't know if you have a kit or a package for situations like that, but if you're going to get the water pump, you might as well get the thermatic fan as well.
I like the way you're thinking, Joe. That's exactly. Short answer is we don't have a kit because there are so many varieties of engines and horsepowers, and of course the other thing you've got to take into consideration, Joe, is the radiator size. And one of the great things we've got, again, that's on our website, that if you've got a radiator core and you don't know what size fan you want to put on it, you can just put the dimensions, the width, the height, and the depth
The concept for EPARTRADE is basically, in my opinion, there's a big hole in the internet. So the internet started many years ago, but there's never been an online business community for racers on the World Wide Web. The need for EPARTRADE is actually quite obvious. Basically, people in the business of auto racing need a place online to hang out and to get their problems solved.
It's extremely simple for a buyer or for a supplier to interact on the platform. The first thing you need to do is sign in, which is free. And the second thing is, when you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information. If it's a company, you click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
You can go to epartrade.com, you become part of a community of businesses in racing, and it makes sourcing products much easier than just on the internet or using Google.
At EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier through an email.
More than that, it's a place to go just to keep current every day. So it's a good place to start your workday in your racing business or in your offices of your professional race team. And you know you're current when it comes to new technology, industry news, technical papers, technical videos, all of that and more. We're not looking for a million hits per day. All we want is people who are really the volume buyers of racing products in the racing industry to be part of the little world of EPARTRADE. We have racing businesses participating from around the world. So you get suppliers from around the world, you get buyers from around the world.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
There are two types of people, racers and everyone else. Racer Magazine is for those who believe that racing is a way of life. Racer embodies the excellence that defines a sport driven by passion, courage, and ingenuity. Get 1 year of both Racer's print and digital edition for only $39 with instant access to our entire digital issue archive. Subscribe now at info.racer.com.